Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Langley Aldergrove.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Last week I had a question of the Minister for Emergency Preparedness about the recent flooding in the Fraser Valley, and in particular in Abbotsford, which touches on my riding. And I pointed out in my question that the Sumas Prairie diking system needs repair. We've known that for a long time. That is not new news, and we knew that the price tag would be roughly $500 million, which seems like a big amount of money. But the cost of repair, if there was a flood, would be significantly higher. Well, our worst nightmare came to pass a couple of weeks ago. I was happy to hear that the Minister for Emergency Preparedness say that, yes, there will be money. The federal government sees a responsibility there. So I hope you brought his checkbook today, because I have a specific ask. But a little bit of background first. Sumas Prairie actually used to be Sumas Lake. It's a wetlands area. Was subject to annual flooding twice a year, spring freshet, and in the fall, the heavy rains like we saw. But about 100 years, we diked it off, we put in canals, we put in big pumping stations, we pumped it dry. It's very fertile farmland. There's another area of Abbotsford, which I'm sure the Minister is aware of because he visited there recently. It's called the Matsqui District. It's also low-lying land, subject to annual flooding, but there's a diking system there. It held back the water this time around, so that's a good thing, because it's holding back the mighty Fraser. And when that breaks, we've got a really, really big problem. I met with Mayor Braun on the weekend, together with my colleague, the member for Abbotsford, and we asked him, Mayor Braun, I'm going to be meeting with the Minister for Emergency Preparedness. What specifically do we need? And he said, we need money. Those two diking systems still need to be repaired. $500 million roughly for each of them. They need to be sizably upgraded. It's a lot of money, I recognize that. So that's what we're asking for, some money. But there's a second question, which is more complicated. And that is, we need to negotiate with the United States of America, because the Nooksack River, which runs solely within the state of Washington and Whatcom County, also contributed in a very significant way to the flooding this time. This also is a problem that we've known for many, many years. I read a report just recently that talked about the complexity of it. It is complex. It is the harder question. It is a harder problem to solve. I wonder what the Minister for Emergency Preparedness says about that. First, money. Number two, negotiate with the United States. Thank you.
Honourable Minister of Emergency Preparedness.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I would like to thank my friend from Langley Aldergrove for his question and his collaboration on this. This is a really important issue, and he's absolutely correct. I've recently traveled to Abbotsford. It's not the first time I've been to Abbotsford, not the first time I've met with Mayor Braun, but I am aware of the extraordinary impact that the recent flooding events have had on that community and many other parts of the lower mainland of BC. And the communities thereby impacted. I regret to tell him I didn't bring a checkbook with me today, but I have some other good news, and that I think will be more responsive to his inquiry. Madam Speaker, when this terrible event began to happen, and I was in regular contact with the BC government about this event, and like in the earliest hours, we had the Canadian Armed Forces in responding, and in order to provide some really critically important later, with the Canadian Armed Forces, 650 of them arrived in the Abbotsford area and have helped with diking and repair and sandbagging. I've actually gone there and witnessed the exceptional work they were doing, and they were doing it alongside the people of the community that were being impacted. And frankly, it made me, as I'm sure it does to my friend from Langley Aldergrove, proud to be a Canadian, to watch how people responded in these very difficult times. But Madam Speaker, I would acknowledge that there is certainly an important work that needs to be done. You know, one of the things that we have seen over the past several years is an increase in the amount of money that the Government of Canada has been expending on disaster financial assistance through the arrangements that we have with the provinces and territories in response to flooding events. And in fact, Madam Speaker, some of the analysis shows that we can expect that, as a direct result of climate change, to rise exponentially to 5 times its current level of expenditure. And it's so important that we invest significantly in disaster mitigation and adaptation in all of those areas to ensure that we have resilient infrastructure. And the diking system to which my friend refers is a very important part of that. As I'm sure he is also aware, the diking system was initially the responsibility of the provincial government. They downloaded it to the municipality. What Mayor Braun shared with me, as I suspect shared with my friend, is that a municipality, because they draw their resources from property taxes, was unable to make the investments and do the work that was necessary. I spoke to the Premier of British Columbia. He said that was a mistake. And we have also undertaken, we've set up a joint committee between the province and the territories, and I'm insisting that the municipalities be involved in it as well, so that we will invest federal dollars in accompanying provincial dollars and working with the municipality to repair those dikes to ensure that we build a greater resilience for that community. Building back is not good enough. We need to build back better. And I know that's sometimes an overused phrase, Madam Speaker, but we recognize the importance of investing in that. Last year in our budget 2021, we committed $1.4 million to the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund. We know where those dollars are going to need to be spent. And although there's no checkbook today, I want to assure my friend that we'll be there with the people of British Columbia. That's a very important community in this country. The farming work that goes on there, we've seen the resilience of those people. We need to make sure that their community is resilient as well.
The honourable member for Langley Eldergrove.
Good. Well, thank you. So $1.4 million for a study is important, of course, but we're talking $1 billion. If you didn't bring the checkbook today, will it be in the budget? This is absolutely essential. This is existential to the Fraser Valley. The minister also didn't make any reference to negotiating a treaty with the United States, the Nooksack River, and the Columbia River, right through the International Joint Commission. Very important. We cannot do this alone. We need our American allies with us on this. Comments about that, please.
Minister.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, Madam Speaker, because perhaps I did not make myself clearer in my articulation, but actually what we put in Budget 2021 was $1.4 billion for the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, not for a study, but to begin to do some of the important work. But I will also tell you, certainly in Lower Mainland BC, in Abbotsford, but in many places right across the country, we know that work needs to be done. And let me also acknowledge that in parts of the United States, and the United States in many ways has been ahead of us on this, that they've been investing in creating a more resilient infrastructure and to deal with the potential of disasters in their communities. But it is work that is ongoing in collaboration between our two countries. We recognize, water does not respect international boundaries. It doesn't flow north or south. It flows downhill. And when the Nooksack River overflows its banks, that water tends to head right up the Sumas Plain and clearly was a part of, not solely responsible for the flooding that took place, but a part of it. We'll work with the government of the United States and Washington State, with the BC government and with the communities impacted to make a difference.
The honourable member for Fort